every night at 3:17. It started, Marcus would later say, with a question he couldn't answer. Dad, his daughter said over cereal, not even looking up. Why do you check on me every night at 3:17? He laughed. Told her she was dreaming. She shrugged and went back to her cereal, and he went back to his coffee, and he didn't think about it again until that night, when he woke at 3:17 a.m. for no reason at all, and found himself standing in her doorway. He didn't remember getting up. Didn't remember walking there. He was just standing in the doorway, in the dark, watching her sleep, and his feet were cold, and he had no idea how long he'd been standing there. He told himself it was a coincidence. Parents check on their kids. Bodies wake up sometimes. He went back to bed and didn't tell his wife, because it felt stupid to say out loud. I sleepwalked to my daughter's room at the exact time she said I always do. The next night he set an alarm for 3:10, just to catch himself before it happened. He lay there in the dark, watching the numbers change. 3:11, 3:12, 3:13. At 3:14 he fell asleep. He woke at 3:17, standing in her doorway again. It's worth being clear about something, because it matters later. Marcus was not a nervous man. He didn't believe in anything he couldn't measure. He'd spent 30 years fixing HVAC systems, 30 years finding the boring, physical reason something was wrong. A pipe, a fault, a draft. So when he spent the next 2 weeks trying to find the boring reason behind this, understand that he meant it. He never found one. Night 3, he asked his wife, Dana, to watch him. She sat up with a book while he pretended to sleep, and the next morning she told him, very calmly, in the tone she used when she didn't want to scare him, that at 3:16 he'd sat up, gotten out of bed, and walked to Emma's room without opening his eyes. She'd timed it on her phone. He stood in the doorway for exactly 1 minute. Then he turned around, walked back, and got into bed like nothing had happened. Your eyes were open when you turned around, she said. Just for a second. Before you sat down. What did they look like? She didn't answer that. She just asked if they should call someone. They called someone. A sleep specialist, then a therapist, then, when Emma started saying she felt watched even during the day, a family counselor who used the word stress a lot and didn't have any better ideas than they did. Nobody could explain why a grown man would rise, unconscious, at the same minute every single night, and walk to his child's door. Sleepwalking doesn't usually run on a schedule. It doesn't usually stop, dead, at exactly 60 seconds. Marcus started sleeping in the hallway, on an air mattress, so he could catch himself the second he moved. It didn't help. He'd wake mid-step, already halfway to her door, his body already 3:17 years into a routine he had no memory of choosing. That was the part he couldn't shake. It felt chosen. It felt like habit, not compulsion, the difference between a tick and a task. He wasn't twitching toward her room. He was going there like a man clocking in. 9 nights in, he asked Emma something he probably shouldn't have. When I come to your door, he said, trying to sound casual, failing completely, what do I do? She thought about it in the unbothered way kids think about things that would break an adult. You don't do anything, she said. You just watch me for a minute. Then you leave. Does it scare you? No, she said. It's not really you, though. Something went cold in his chest. What do you mean it's not really me? She shrugged again, that same small, unbothered shrug, and said, your shadow doesn't match. It's a second behind you. Like on a bad video call. Marcus did not sleep again that night. He sat in the hallway with every light in the house on and watched the clock hate him, minute by minute, until 3:17 came and went and nothing happened, because he never let himself close his eyes. The next morning he installed a camera outside Emma's door. Motion-activated, infrared, the kind you can check from your phone. He told himself it was so he could finally see what his body was doing without his permission. He didn't tell himself the other reason. That some part of him wanted proof he wasn't losing his mind, and some smaller, quieter part of him was terrified of what would count as proof. Night 10, the camera caught him. The footage is worth describing exactly the way he saw it, because he watched it maybe 40 times afterward, and every time he saw something new, and he couldn't tell if that meant he was noticing more or if it meant he was starting to see things that weren't there. At 3 hours 16 minutes and 41 seconds, the hallway light, the one they left on for Emma, flickered once. Not a power thing. The electrician checked. A single, isolated flicker, like something passed close enough to the bulb to disturb it. At 3 hours 16 minutes and 52 seconds, Marcus appears at the edge of the frame, walking toward the door. Slowly. Evenly. His eyes are closed, his arms hang loose, exactly the way you'd picture a sleepwalker if you'd never actually seen one, a little too textbook, a little too much like the idea of sleepwalking rather than the real thing. At 3 hours and 17 minutes exactly, he stops in the doorway. And this is the part that mattered, the part he sat with for the rest of his life without ever finding anywhere to put it. Emma had been right. On the footage, there are 2 shadows cast by the hallway light. His, moving normally, stopping when he stops. And a second one, layered just behind it, half a second delayed, like an echo made of darkness instead of sound, and when he finally comes to a stop at 3 hours and 17 minutes, his shadow stops with him. The second one doesn't. It keeps moving. It steps past his shadow, into the doorway, into her room, while his actual body just stands there, eyes closed, doing nothing at all. Marcus didn't sleep in that house again. He knew how that sounded. He knew a man who fixed furnaces for a living wasn't supposed to end up sleeping in his own truck, in his own driveway, afraid of a shadow on a security camera. But he sat there until sunrise with the doors locked, watching the house, and somewhere around 5 in the morning it occurred to him to check something he hadn't thought to check. He scrubbed back through 2 weeks of footage. Every single night, same timestamp. His shadow stops in the doorway at 3 hours and 17 minutes. The second shadow enters her room every time. It never once comes back out. Which meant, whatever it was, whatever had been walking into his daughter's room every night for 2 weeks wearing the half-second delay of something pretending to be his shadow, it was still in there. Every night, it added one more. It never left. It just accumulated, one more of it every night, one more standing in the dark of her room, and he was the door it walked through to get there. He called Emma the next morning to tell her they were staying at her grandmother's for a while. She sounded confused. She said they didn't need to. She said it was fine. She said she liked having them there now. Having who there? He asked. There was a pause on the line. The kind of pause a kid does when she's doing quiet math. I don't know how many, she said. I stopped counting after the first week. They just stand around my bed. They don't do anything. They just watch me sleep. Emma, has anyone been coming into your room? Recently, has that changed at all? Another pause. Longer this time. No, she said. Actually, it's better now. Last night was the first night nobody new came in. He asked her what she meant. He already knew what she meant. He made her say it anyway, because some part of him needed to hear it in her voice, to know for certain this wasn't a dream he could still wake up from. You didn't come last night, she said. For the first time in 2 weeks. I thought maybe you'd finally stopped. It was 2:58 a.m. When he checked into a motel 2 towns over, from his daughter, from his wife, from a house he would never set foot in again. Every light in the room was on. He hadn't closed his eyes since sunrise the day before, because he no longer trusted what left his body when he did. If Emma was right, if last night really had been the first night nobody new came in, then it wasn't following him anymore. It already had everything it needed. It was just waiting for one of them to open the door. It was 3:14 by then. He didn't know why he was still checking the clock. He didn't know why some part of him was already standing up,